right, Venus is heading retrograde, and that is going to cause all of us a little or a lot of discomfort. Venus has influence over both material comfort and harmonious relationships. And Venus, as an archetype, rules pleasure, bliss, affection, love, dedication, and satisfaction. And these are things that we want more of all the time, if possible, please. But we block ourselves. And when Venus goes retrograde in the sky, we're going to get a month-long period of getting to see how exactly we block ourselves. And I'll give you two keywords here. One is boundaries, and the other is illusions. So let's get into it. Before we do that, I'm Natha Perkins of Electra Astrology. If you do not have my free Astrology is a Superpower ebook, you can get it in the link below. I put it in both the podcast notes and the YouTube description box. I always feel so cheesy saying that, but I guess it's part of what one does when putting content out into the world. And if you want to book a private reading with me, or you just want to learn more astrology, you can find me at electraastrology.com. I'm teaching astrology, yes, but it's deeper than that. I am using astrology as the entryway into you understanding yourself better so that you can heal. The world is a crazy mess right now. Lots of people who are happily playing the game of being on autopilot. If you have found this podcast or you're listening to this information, you are waking up and you want to figure out how to make waking up a little bit easier and really do what you came here to do, which is to it's to wake up. So, welcome. Your alarm clock is going off. We're going to talk about Venus in retrograde. So, first, a little bit about what a retrograde is, if you don't know. We are all circling the sun. So, when a planet goes retrograde, it is appearing to go backward in the sky from our Earth's perspective. So, we take the archetypal descriptions of said planet, in this case, Venus, and we say we have to go back through. We have to go back over old ground. We're putting the car into reverse. Imagine you're moving, you have all of your stuff in the back of your truck, and something flies out. So you have to stop the truck on the side of the highway and you have to reverse to get back to what flew out of the car. So that's a silly example, but what we're looking at with Venus themes are the pieces of our experience that relate to material comforts, our wealth, our abundance, our physical experience, our physical pleasures, and that is when we're looking at Venus as a ruler of Taurus, and or we're looking at our relationships, whether we're happy, whether we're getting our needs met, whether the relationship feels equal. These are the things that we have to go back and re-examine. We're essentially looking for what's not going right so that we can fix it, make it better moving forward. It's part of this whole awakening process. When you're on autopilot, you just become a victim of circumstance. Whatever somebody hands you, you just grab it and keep walking. Somebody tells you to buy something, you buy it. Tells you to root for a certain team, you root for that team. Tells you you're supposed to look a certain way, you need to alter your body in this way, you alter your body. What we're doing, we are acknowledging that that has been our culture and conditioning thus far on the planet in this lifetime. What we are trying to do is we're trying to deviate and step onto a more evolved timeline, which is where we are taking back our personal power. We are coming to understand the things that we want more of and the things that are not actually important to us. They are not our values. And Venus really is related as a very bottom line description to our values, the things that we prioritize in our lives, the things that equate to wealth. And wealth isn't just money. This isn't about accumulating cash in the bank. This is looking around and saying, do I feel loved? Do I have people that I love? How does my health feel? Is my body a comfortable place to be? How much pleasure do I allow in my life? How often do I stop to smell the roses or appreciate physical touch? How much physical touch do I have in my life? Do I have people I can count on? Are there people that count on me? Do I have enough? Do I have enough of what I need? And these are Venus themes because the world is largely run at this point by people that are trying to sell you stuff. It is in the best interest of those marketing to try to push those values onto you. The value of having a nice car, taking fancy vacations, looking beautiful, looking young, having fame. right? So when we stop to examine whether those are actually our values versus some of those values that I just shared with you, which frankly, I think we can all agree that we all want to be surrounded by people we love. We all want to have enough. We all want to feel safe and secure and feel good in our bodies. And I think that upon reflection, those things are actually far more valuable to us, especially in the long run, than having a fancy car or a name brand t-shirt. So with Venus retrograde, and we have been doing this work because the South Node has been in Libra. Before that, the North Node was in Taurus. We've had several years of having to evaluate our values. So this is not new work, but as Venus stations to go retrograde and will officially go retrograde on March 4th in the sign of Aries, we want to look at what is that going to mean? What is that going to bring up? What are we going to be examining so that we can like study for the test and like show up and get the A? You know, when I'm working with clients, a lot of times I will see people go through transits. I would say most of the people that come to me for readings are interested in investing in themselves. They want to do the personal work that it requires to evolve and to grow. But what we see is that a transit can come along and totally impact you. It can be a teacher that, if you are willing to learn from it, you can gather so much wisdom and you leave that lesson feeling really educated and more empowered. Or you can allow a transit to just run in the background, not really affecting you. You aren't really learning anything. You're just kind of going through the same old motions that you've always been going through. So you do have a choice with these retrogrades. Sometimes you're going to be affected, sometimes you're not going to be affected at all, but because you never know when what you're learning is going to come in really handy. And again, we all want the Venus stuff. We want more of it. We want to feel good. We want to feel loved. We want to have plenty. But we can get stuck over in the eddies where we don't feel that. We feel lack. We feel unbalanced. We feel like all we do is people please. And that's when we know that we have some Venus issues that need to be worked out. So Venus is in the sign of Aries. It's going to go retrograde starting at 10 degrees of the sign of Aries. So what we know about Aries is that it relates to our boundaries, to our passion and our purpose. And it is a very me-centric sign. It is about me and my needs, me and my passions. And Venus isn't totally comfortable in Aries because Venus is such an us archetype. It's like me and my love and me and my friendships, me and my relationships. I want to look good. I want to be loved. I want to be desired. I want us to be making decisions together. So already right off the bat, Venus is in a difficult position. So we're looking at boundaries. And something that's been occurring to me lately, and we're all getting our Venus retrograde themes delivered to us. So pay attention to what has shown up in your sphere over the last few days, few weeks, depending on when you're listening to this, because you are being shown, do you have issues with boundaries? Are there people in your life that you find it very hard to say no to? And in dialing into that, you know, it's one thing to have somebody that makes you mad or that makes it very easy for you to lay down a boundary, right? I'm not going to do that. Don't call me. This is unacceptable, right? And so those are usually the people that, believe it or not, are the easiest for us to lay boundaries down with. It's like, well, screw that person. I'm not even going to call them. Like, I'll just block their number or I'll just send them to voicemail when they call. So I think that we're all better at those kind of boundaries, right? Like we honk in traffic so that somebody doesn't come into our lane. Like that's a pretty strong boundary, and we're good at that. But it starts to get murky because think about the people that are actually really nice. They just get on your nerves, or they're really needy, or they're always asking you for more than you want to give, or it feels like they're just sticking their straw like into your cup and just sucking all of your life force, the energetic vampire, but they're nice. Or you feel obligated, right? Maybe it's a family member, maybe it's an elder, maybe it's a neighbor, where you don't want to, nor do you really need to set a very firm boundary, but it's like, oh boy, here's that person again. And we go into our Venus In Libra, Venus in Libra is more relational. And we know that the shadow of Venus in Libra can be to fawn, to want to seem good, and to want to be nice. Libra, it's one of the cardinal signs in the zodiac. And when we are being a boss with our Libra energy, we are ruling because we're really nice. Yeah, people like nice people. Nice people are easy to deal with, and we can get a lot of needs met by being nice. But what we're going to find with Venus in retrograde in Aries is that if we are burdened by being nice, and there are people that are needy and taking too much from us, and maybe it's more subtle. Maybe it's more like, I don't have the energy this week, but I feel bad. I feel like I need to pick up the phone. I feel like I need to do this thing for this person. This is where making the boundary becomes difficult. Libra is flanked on either side by Virgo and Scorpio. So we will become merged with those energies on either side. So this particular version of Libra is you being merged with the Virgo side of you that wants to be good, that wants to get approval, that wants to show up and do the thing. However, when you realize that you're becoming a little merged on the Scorpio side where you're resentful, you're feeling annoyed, you're feeling like, why is this person always in my hair? That's your mindfulness bell. Like, ooh, I need to work on setting a boundary here. And it might not be an outright boundary with that person. It might be a boundary with yourself, where this sweet person who's very needy, who needs something from you again, who wants you to hold space from them, who wants to call and complain, or wants to moan and groan about what's happening in the world, and you do not have it in you to hold space for them. You're going to have to do some deeper personal work here around having a boundary with yourself, saying to yourself, I cannot do it. I cannot hold space for this person right now. I cannot pick up the phone while this person is calling me right now. I need to create some space for myself. I need to step into my Aries, which is so much about independence and so much about knowing what is right for me and being able to hold a boundary. Now, that's going to cause some discomfort. Like I said at the beginning, we're looking at some discomfort over the course of this retrograde, but we're learning how to tolerate the discomfort of letting somebody down, of not being there to hold space for somebody. Because the thing is we all want to be in service to the people on the planet. We are all humanitarians at heart. Nobody wants anybody else to suffer. And I'm just going to make that assumption from a place of optimism. I think right now there's a lot of rhetoric that there's many people on the earth that want people to suffer. And I don't think that's true. I think that that is propaganda, that the powers that be want all of us to be against one another. And that is simply not how it is. That's not how it is when I'm moving around my world. Everybody in my world, even when I'm out around town, around people that I have never met before, everyone's pretty nice. Everyone does pretty well together. So we're going to make the optimistic assumption here that we all want what's best for everybody. But we cannot be constantly selling ourselves out and running ourselves into the ground to ensure that somebody else is happy. We are here as autonomous beings. We are here to ensure our own happiness, our own wealth, our own abundance. And sometimes, yes, that's going to look like money. And we all know that the distribution of money is wonky. We can't say everybody can make the exact same amount of money. That is not true. That is not how it works. But what we can say is that we are all responsible for our own sense of contentment. We are responsible for the way that we navigate and move around the world. We're responsible for getting our own needs met. And if we are simply relying on somebody out there to meet our needs, I'm only going to be happy if you pick up the phone and talk to me and talk me through whatever my angst of the day is, then we've veered off course. And so in supporting all of us being autonomous and doing our own personal work to ensure as much happiness, contentment, well-being as possible, we have to assume that other people are doing that for themselves, and we have to do that for ourselves. And that means sometimes putting down a boundary. That means disappointing somebody. means hurting somebody's feelings. But if we're only acting out of a sense of obligation and it's creating resentment within us, nobody wants to be helped out of a sense of resentment. We don't want somebody to say, I guess I'll hang out with them. Ugh, I don't want to. Nothing in me wants to hang out with them. And if I do hang out with them, I'm going to be really annoyed and I'm going to be exhausted and I'm probably going to talk a bunch of trash about them behind their back. Like, we don't want that, right? We don't want to be the one that is annoyed and resentful. And we also do not want to be the one that somebody is feeling resistant to hanging out with. We want people to be able to have their no, right? I can have my no, lay down my boundary. Even if it ends up hurting you, we don't have to lay down a boundary in a cruel way. We can just say, this doesn't work for me right now. But in order to get there, we really have to have the talk with ourselves. We have to hold our own state of consciousness strongly enough so that we know this is not right for me right now. I cannot, in good conscience, with my energy levels and with my capacity in this moment, I can't go do that. I can't go help you. Can't pick up the phone when you call. Okay. So that's going to be a big part of this Venus retrograde in Aries is looking at your boundaries, not the people that it's easy to say no to because they've made you mad, but the people that it's really, really hard to say no to because you don't want to hurt them, because you feel guilty. And then we're looking at being able to say no to ourselves when we slip into that compulsion, because it really is a compulsion. You can practice this. The next time that somebody calls you and you don't want to pick up the phone, and you know, I don't want to pick up the phone, watch how many of your parts give you all of the reasons why you should pick up the phone. Oh, I feel bad. Oh, what if they're mad at me? Oh, it's just a quick phone call, right? So we have all of these conflicting parts that are going to come in and try to convince us to break our own boundaries. So we're recognizing that we need to have some self-imposed boundaries. We're looking at some strategies for tolerating the discomfort of having strong boundaries. And we're trying to prevent overextending ourselves, putting ourselves in situations where we're taking on too much and it's blocking our ability to have a pleasurable experience. If we're so tired and drained and busy accommodating everybody else's experience, do we have room to sit back and enjoy? So these are some questions that you can contemplate. On March 27th, Venus retrogrades back into the sign of Pisces. Venus loves to be in Pisces. It is considered exalted there. Pisces is dreamy, romantic, creative. And if you think about everything that we love about new relationship, there's a vibrancy, there's a sense of exploration, of magic, of sparkle. So Venus loves to be there, but this is not an easy experience for her this time around because, first of all, she's going retrograde. She's going back. She's already been through this, and now she's got to go back. She's going to meet with Neptune, the North Node, and Saturn, none of which are easy to meet with. And we are going to have to address our illusions, the parts of us when it comes to our love, our money, our self-worth, our self-concept, the part of us that is just straight up deluded, that doesn't see things clearly, can show up in a number of ways. It can be idealizing of the perfect partner that I have yet to meet, or going back in history and saying, oh, I gave up the best I was ever going to have, or romanticizing the past. It can also look like being dissociated and tuning out when it comes to the importance of doing the deeper work within relationship. And I have just released a bunch of teachings on the asteroid Juno, talking about the deep sacred love and what it takes to cultivate a deep and sacred love. So sometimes with Venus, we can get a little bit attached to resting on the surface. Like, how does it look from the outside? How does it look from the front end? How does my love look? How do I look? We get caught up in the vanity of it, but there's nothing deep there. So we're looking at the lack of depth, maybe, within some of our relationships or within our relationship to our money. Maybe we're looking at the places where we have become too fantastical. One day I'm going to make $1 million. And for right now, I don't even want to work. Or I'm ending this relationship because I feel like Mr. and Mrs. Right is just around the bend and I need to get out of this relationship to go be with them. Or they'll change. I can change them. Things look bad right now, but I feel like they're going to improve. Or just head in the sand. I don't want to deal. I don't want to look at it. I don't want to talk about it. And this is difficult work because, well, we like our fantasies. Living in fantasy can be a hell of a lot easier than living in reality because in fantasy, we don't really have to take any action. We're just waiting. And I've been talking a lot about divine timing, trust, and surrender as it comes to Pisces. So this is a part of the story, right? There is something to be said for allow the right thing to show up when it's going to show up and allow the answer to arise. But that is technically different than pretending that something is possibly going to be better or different in the future. And with Venus in retrograde in Pisces, we really have to look at where we've been pretending. And this could look like the old storyline that you keep running through your head over and over about something from the past. Oh, if only they had been different. Oh, if only I had been different. Or the delusion about it doesn't matter how much money I spend on my credit card. One day I'll make enough money to pay it off. In the meantime, I'm just going to keep spending. So like I said, Venus in retrograde, bringing up a lot of discomfort, a lot of stuff that we have to explore. But the truth is that if you're willing to look at your illusions and delusions, and you're willing to look at your boundaries or lack thereof, there's so much growth here. Such an opportunity for harmonizing your boundaries, harmonizing your values, practicing self-awareness. And of course, this isn't the kind of work that you just snap your fingers and you complete. Right? This is long-term work. This is work that's going to extend long past the Venus retrograde. But if you can bring some awareness to some of the more problematic areas in your life as it relates to Venus things, that can be really helpful. And Venus is also a ruler of Taurus, which is a much more personal Venus. Libra Venus is relational, Taurus Venus is personal. One of the ways that we come to really understand what our boundaries are is by running it through our physical body. How does something feel in the physical body? And that could be like, how does setting a boundary feel in my body? Do I feel like a contraction in my gut? Do I feel a racing in my heart? If so, can I tolerate those physical symptoms in order to get my needs met as I'm practicing boundaries? We also use the body as a pleasure gauge. Am I living a life where there's enough pleasure? Am I feeding myself the foods that make me feel the best? Am I drinking enough water? These are simple pleasures that really help boost our relationship to ourselves. And one way to know when we're out of alignment with the physical parts of Venus, our comforts, is when we find ourselves being angry. And that's when we've veered over into Aries because Taurus is flanked on either side by Aries and Gemini. So when we feel angry, that's an indication that we probably need to set a boundary. And if you find yourself ruminating, overthinking, anxious, that's a red flag. You've popped over into the land of Gemini and your head is running the show instead of your physical experience. So we want to keep our heads because our heads are the ones that come in that say, you should, you need to, you have to, you shouldn't, you're unlovable, you made a bad decision, you lost the best person that was ever going to come into your life, you can't let this person go, right? That is our mind that wants to come in and derail us. But when we're tuned into the physical body, that's when we feel that ground. That's when we get the true answers and we know this feels right for me right now and this feels wrong for me right now. And I'm going to practice listening to that. Now take a deep breath into all of that. Notice how it feels to be receiving this information. And there are some ways that you can support yourself through this. This is an exploration for you. It's a journey. It is a set of spiritual lessons that Venus in retrograde will be bringing you. And each of our lessons will be unique to who we are and what we need more of or less of in our experience. So I suggest journaling, spending time walking in nature without noise coming into your ears, maybe without an animal that you have to track, laying out in the sun, allowing the sun codes to infuse you, bring you energy, bring you guidance. And of course, spending time near water will do the same thing. Write down the thoughts that you have, write down the insights, and just know that even if you only come out of this with a few important nuggets, that's enough. That's enough for you to evolve and grow and realign. We are recalibrating, we are realigning. And that's the nature of a retrograde. And that's also what's happening on the planet right now. We're learning how to realign with our personal values so that we can foster authentic relationships with one another and really build our own self-respect. All right, I hope this was helpful. I will see you all soon.